Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fensterman, and I have the privilege tonight of being the dinner champion. I got involved in the Chabad of Port Washington several years ago, and it was one of the better things, I must tell you, that I've done in my life. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing a dear friend of mine who is our honoree. And actually, my interest, or reinvigorated interest in Judaism, started and was reintroduced to me by him. His name is Ben Landa. In 2004, for the first time, Ben took me to Israel. And I went with Ben, I went with his partner, Ben Phillipson, who was here tonight. And at that point in my life, I had not laid tefillin. I had not laid tefillin since my bar mitzvah. And I went to Yerushalayim. I met Ben Phillipson's close friend and Rabbi Deutsch. And on that day when we went to the Kotel, I didn't really have a tefillin. I had my grandfather's tefillin. And as I was attempting to wrap it around my arm, the leather was a bit short. And when we were leaving Jerusalem on that trip, Rabbi Deutsch was kind enough to bring me a tefillin and a talis. And he asked me in Yiddish to daven, lay the tefillin every morning, and to at least say Shema Yisrael. And since that time, which is now 6 years ago, I have been doing that. Thereafter, I met Rabbi Patil, and he became my rabbi. So the continuation of my interest in Judaism has continued to be perpetuated by the Chabad of Port Washington. Most recently, my son and my daughter-in-law, Jordan and Samantha Fensterman, who are also here tonight, moved into Port Washington North. And the rabbi was kind enough to go to their home and put mezuzahs all over their house, bless the mezuzahs. So we have now a very strong tie-in to the Chabad of Port Washington. Ben Landa has a very, very, very deep love for the state of Israel. He is a major backer and supporter of a group that is known as Manhagut Yehudit, which is the strong right wing of the Likud. Ben's love for Israel stems from many things, not the least of which is that both of his parents were Holocaust survivors. And Ben, who is a self-made man, today is the largest nursing home owner, along with his partner Ben Phillipson, in the state of New York. And he is totally self-made. But the beauty of Ben Landa is that he is incredibly humble. He is a major philanthropist, and you would really not know or ever hear from his mouth just how generous he is when it comes to tzedakah. A good portion of his earnings every year are for tzedakah. He supports many, many causes. And I am so pleased, as is the rabbi, that Ben agreed to become one of our major supporters tonight. And Ben tonight raised for this event $50,000. In addition to being my friend, Ben is also my partner, and I am also his lawyer. It's a very, very special relationship. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask you to please welcome this very, very generous and humble man, Mr. Benjamin Landa. Ben.
Master. reminded of a little incident in 2004. One of our investors in the nursing home business, a gentleman, as a matter of fact, that lives out here in Roslyn, a gentleman by the name of Martin Faberboom, asked me to do him a favor and partake in a fundraiser in Philadelphia for President Bush. Of course, they needed my check, that's why I went there. And we had lunch, and everybody was introduced to the president, had a picture taken. And the president asked me, I was the only Orthodox Jew in the crowd, and the president asked me, where are you from? I said, Brooklyn, New York. He turns around to his aides, and he says, you schlepped this poor guy all the way from Brooklyn? So once again tonight, I'm being schlepped all the way from Brooklyn, and I apologize, that's why my wife and my family are not here. Everyone's getting ready for camp in summer, and it was very difficult. But I'm glad I'm here in Port Washington. It's beautiful out here, much nicer than Brooklyn. A lot more Republicans out here than in Brooklyn, which I like. But in all seriousness, if I didn't say anything else about Chabad, just the fact that wherever you travel, all over the world, and you need a place to eat, you need a warm house to have something, warm meal, if there's no restaurants. If you need a place to go daven, to pray, and you want to be around a Jewish atmosphere, the only place that you have is Chabad. The joke is, what's all over the world? Coca-Cola and Chabad. And along that, I'd like to just introduce someone that's here in the crowd that's one of the Chabad houses from Thailand, the chief rabbi of Thailand, Rabbi Cantor. Ideologically, it would be very interesting that I'm involved with Chabad in this way, because Chabad is one of many Hasidic groups, one of the largest in the world. One of the other large Hasidic groups, especially here in the United States, is a group called the Satmars. I don't know how many of you have heard of them. And ideologically, they're pretty opposed to Chabad. I mean, there's, thank God, no war on the streets, but they're very, very different. I happen to be related to all the Satmars. The grand rabbi was Rabbi Teitelbaum, and my mother is a Teitelbaum. And I come from a direct descendant from the original founder of that Hasidus, who was known as Rabbi Moshe Teitelbaum. So you'd think I would be at a Satmar dinner and not at a Chabad dinner, because truthfully, I have no blood in my family that comes from Chabad. It's a Russian Hasidus. Our family comes from the Hungarian Hasidus. But Chabad stands for a lot of things that are close to the heart. And ideology trumpets blood when it comes to your beliefs. As Howard mentioned, I have a strong love for the state of Israel. And of course, I don't want to compare myself to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, because he was a holy man. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a tremendous love for the state of Israel, for the land of Israel, and for Jews all over the world, especially Israel. And reminds me of a story in 1977-78, when there was the Camp David Accords, and Menachem Begin, who was the Prime Minister of Israel, came to meet Jimmy Carter. I call him the anti-Semite Jimmy Carter. The Rebbe warned Menachem Begin, who was a good man, a good heart, a good Jew, that if you make concessions, you will put the people and the nation in danger. And history has proven him right. We've seen every time Israel has conceded land or their beliefs or their birthright to the enemy, the answer is always rockets, bombs, and missiles. And that is something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe understood. He understood that the Jewish people have to follow the Torah and God, and that is what protects us, not missile defenses. God is our protection. And that is the message that Chabad gives all over the world. The love of your fellow Jew. If you love your fellow Jew, you are doing what's called the mitzvah. And that is what protects all of us. Thank you.